All right, drivers. I'm just getting off of I-40 westbound in this shot, and in Kingman, Arizona. I'm getting ready to go to the Flying J here. I want to talk about maneuvering in truck stops, backing versus pull-through parking versus nose-in parking. Some of the some of the things you should do and not do in any of these cases, and what I think is always the best practice. Okay, you see at the end of the ramp, I have two left turn lanes. Now, as a reminder, if you should already know this if you already have your CDL, but those of you who don't have your CDL yet and are going through or getting ready to get you're going to school or you're already in school, whatever. Always make your turns from the outer turn lane when there's more than one turn lane available. The reason why this is necessary or required is because you can make your turn without encroaching on any of the other turn lanes. If you turn from the inner lane, then you have no way to make your turn without encroaching on the other turn lanes. And if there's other traffic in that lane and you hit them, you'll end up getting a ticket for not yielding right away to them. And you'll also find out the hard way that you'll be at fault in such an accident. So, it doesn't matter if you're making a right turn or a left turn, always use the outer turn lane. You might hear some of the older school drivers try to tell you always stay far right on the right turns. Even in multiple right turn lane situations, they'll tell you to use the curbside lane. That is not accurate. That is not correct. I don't care what kind of experience they have. They might have a lot more experience than I do, but they don't have shit for experience compared to a 100-year-old company with a record of over 300 accidents per year on their record. Trust me, the company knows more. Okay, now maneuvering here, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to pause it here. As you see, I have a tight situation here. Now, if I try to beeline into here, I have to make a turn right to clear this guy here. This guy's parked illegally, by the way, but I can still maneuver safely. And this now I need to make sure my trailer is not going to hit. The side of my trailer is not going to run into the corner of this guy. I have room. So general rule of thumb here: if you have space, use space. These are not cars. Do not try to drive them like a car. Do not think like a car. And when I say by maneuvering like a car, I'm going to show you in another spot later on in this video an example of why you should never think of this thing like a car and never turn it like a car. So right now, I'm trying to make sure my tandems stay clear of this guy. Now I'm going to go a little further up. And see, I'm pretty close to the truck on my left. As I'm coming in, I need to be able to watch both sides. I need to watch my tandems, make sure they'll stay clear of this guy, and then, as general rule, if I can see my tandems, then I'll clear this guy. Another general rule: if I can see the side marker on the back corner of my trailer still, then I know I'll clear this guy as well. The guy on the other side of me, I have to be concerned about whether my header board on the opposite side of my trailer is going to hit him. Now, they generally teach you when you're a trainee to completely stop and actually swivel your head in both directions to make absolutely certain you're clear. Because when you have someone who's training a new driver, they're so often they run into situations where a driver's not paying attention and they want to. And things happen so fast. I want to make absolutely certain that you're paying attention. But see, I have my head on a swivel. I'm looking in both directions constantly here. And then as soon as I know that my header board can clear the truck on my left, you see I start steering back to the left. Now my goal here at the point right now is to line my tractor back up with my trailer so I can bring my trailer straight in. If I'm off track in any direction, it means my trailer is going to be rotating as well. But in this situation here, I want my trailer to go straight until I know I can completely clear both of these trucks. Okay, now I'm clear, so now I can go ahead and maneuver into this this lane here. Okay, first part of this, you're going to see me doing a back end parking in the back row. Now I pull a reefer trailer. One of the good practices if you pull reefer, or even if you have an APU, try to find guys with reefer units or with APUs also who to park next to if you can. Some good examples. Got a flatbedder here, or skateboard driver as we call them. You know, they don't have reefer units. It's common for, between them and dry van drivers like this guy here. They're not used to hearing reefer noise all the time, and a lot of these guys can't sleep very well when they're around reefer units. And this is one of the several reasons why people might nose in park like this guy is. I'll talk about the nose in parking situation later, but I don't care what the reason is. I do not ever recommend nose in parking, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, this guy's a drive-in. This guy's a drive-in, but this guy's a reefer. I can see his reefer unit right there. So I'm going to park in that spot right there. Now, you see, I'm approaching as close as I can to these guys. General rule here is if I can open my door, then I'm safe. Yeah, if I can open my door and not hit these guys, then I'm okay. But if I'm so close that I can't open my door, then there's a much higher likelihood that during my turn, the back corner of my trailer might snag onto one of the other trucks in the row, which I don't want to happen. So now, what am I looking for when I'm doing my own setups? I don't do them the way they teach them in some of the company training stuff. The company training, they'll usually tell you line your drive tires up in front of the center of your spot that you're trying to come into. But I was taught by a driver with 20 years of experience and who knows very well the most practical way to get into a spot. And the way I was taught was take my hood mirrors, or the front of my hood if I don't have hood mirrors, get to the when they get to the far end of the truck just past my spot, that's when I start my turn. I'm not going to stop my truck. I'm going to keep my truck rolling. It basically has the same effect as driving down this way and then coming to a complete stop when my drive tires are lined up with the center of the spot and then doing my turn. It's more of a fluid motion that I'm using here, though. So as you see, I've started my turn now. The only time I make an exception to this is if I'm in a tight lane. Okay, something else here with your setup. When to stop turning right. Now, there are different ways you can do your setups, but I always recommend use as much of this space across the lane as you can, because the more of this space you use, the more you can get your trailer angling toward your spot before you start backing into it. And the more you have it angled toward the spot, the easier time you're likely to have. But there is a caveat to this. If you go too far to the right in a lane that is not wide enough for you to work with, you'll never get the trailer past the spot far enough to be able to maneuver it. Also, one of my rules of thumb is never ever steer right while backing. You're going to see at least 95%, even higher, of all drivers do this, where they'll always steer right while backing to help the trailer. But there are so many reasons why I strongly advocate against doing that. You can get away with using that kind of practice here in truck stops that have wide enough lanes. But my rule of thumb here is if I have to steer right while backing, then I did something wrong with my setup. Now, how do I get the right setup? on the right steering part, I stop steering when I only have enough room to put. Just imagine if I have my trailer in front of my truck instead of behind it. Can I fit my trailer between the nose of my truck and whatever reference point I want to use here? Now, the reference point could be an actual line or a building or a barrier post or whatever. Or in this case here, all the trucks in the row across from me are part of the equation here. Whoever's sticking out the furthest becomes my limiter. I'm going to draw an imaginary line that's parallel to the lane that I'm setting up in, and make sure I don't cross it. Now I want to make sure that I can fit my trailer between the nose of my truck and whatever that imaginary line is. In this case, this little discoloration area here might actually be a good reference point, or close to it. If I can't fit my trailer in that gap there, I'm probably turning too far to the right. So I want to go straight ahead, use up all the space, and then you're going to see I'm going to come all the way up. Now, I always end my setups like this. I'm pointing straight down this lane. I'm not pointing at these guys. I'm not pointing anywhere else. I'm pointing straight ahead. There's a reason for this. It's because I'm already off track on the trailer, and now I'm in a position where all I have to do is go straight back with the tractor when I'm backing, and let the trailer do as much of the work, its own work, without my help as I can. One of the lessons I learned when I was a rookie, still on my trainer's truck, in fact, I was at the Pilot in Medford, Oregon, trying to back into a spot there, and I wasn't set up right. Again, Pilot truck stops are notorious for being tight. And this particular one, I didn't set up right because I was following the same fundamental, but it did not account for the fact the lane was more narrow. So, but going back to, just so you can see, okay, what I mean by this with a more narrow lane. In normal cases, with every backing I ever do, doesn't matter if it's a straight back or a 45-45 or even one of my U-turn style backings, I always go to one spot past mine when I start my turn. But in a tight lane for the 45s, you can't do that. You can, but you have to pick a spot further down the lane to work with. So what I do is, in the tight lanes, I'll actually go more like 2 spots past before I start my turn. Okay, right there. It's about here is where I stop steering right, and I'm trying to work my way back to steering straight. Now, see, I have room here I can fit my trailer between here and that's in this imaginary line here. Anyway, at that Pilot, I wasn't set up right. I ended up being set up too much toward the truck on my blind side. And so what I did was I tried to compensate by helping it with right steering. But by right steering, what happened was my tractor's now facing this direction instead of down the lane. And since I'm backing, my tractor's going this direction. If I'm coming this direction, I have a problem over here. I have trucks over on that side of the lane from me. In this particular situation, I came really close to hitting the back of a tanker trailer that was nosed into a spot with the back of my tractor, just because I was trying to maneuver my trailer into my spot. But thankfully, I looked over into my right side just on time to avoid hitting him. Lesson learned. So don't try to always do your setups like this, so you're always in a position where you don't have to worry about whether you're going to hit someone over here across the lane from you. Also, you might see from a couple of my other backing videos I have here that there are times where you are going to have to back into a property from a 2-lane street with cars parallel parked on each side of the street. you don't have room to work with there. You don't get the luxury of being able to move to steer to the right to help the trailer rotate a little faster if you need it to. In those kind of situations, you have to set up just right and let the trailer do every bit of the work possible without doing anything at all, just in order to get into there without hitting anybody or anything. Okay, you see I'm backing now. I'm going straight back. I'm waiting for the trailer to develop its own rotation that I want. Once it has the amount of rotation I'm looking for, basically when it's rotating not too slow but not too fast, that's what I'm looking for. That's when I start my left turn. Now, I'm not putting max left turn in. This is one of the common mistakes that I always had with trainees was, because of the CDL school process, you always get taught to steer, put max steering in or no steering at all. And that's not the right way to do things when you're backing into a spot with a 45. Or even when you're alley docking, if you're learning how to alley dock at a school where the state actually has a requirement for you to learn 90-degree alley docks, like in my state of California. That's another one of those situations where max steering all the time is actually going to get you into trouble, not help you. So in this situation here, I only want just enough steering to keep the amount of tractor versus trailer offset, or as I call it, what degree of articulation is necessary to keep the trailer rotating and rolling the way I want it to. So I'm making various changes to the amount of steering I'm putting in. I'm putting in more and taking some of it out. I'm always in either straight or left turn when I'm backing up. I never steer right. Except for this situation here where I'm already into the spot and now I'm just trying to help maneuver the tandems. Now, if my tandems are too far, when I'm backing, my tandems are too far to the left, let's just say I'm backing into this spot here and then sighting it. If my tandems are too close to this line here, the way to get them to move away from that line is to get my drive tires either closer to the line or over the line. So basically, if I have my tandems like only a foot away from the line, but I want them to be 2 feet away from the line, then I need my drive tires to be basically 6 inches from the line or right on the line or even over the line. That's because wherever my drive tires are is also where the front of my trailer is. And if, whichever way my trailer is pointing is which way my trailer is going to roll. So, that might help you some. Steer toward the problem stuff they teach in CDL school is straight backing. I only ever use that when I'm already in a perfectly set up straight back situation. Never any other time. For those of you who are in CDL school or about to start CDL school, you're going to find out that the backing that you do in CDL school is completely different from the real world. It's not that they are really trying to teach you stupid backing maneuvers. Problem is that their goal in CDL school is to teach you what the DMV requires you to learn to demonstrate during your certification test. So they don't make the rules; the DMV does. There are a couple of little things about backing in CDL school that that can apply in the real world, like the steer toward the problem part and straight backings, which means whatever side of the trailer you can see when you're backing is the side you steer toward. But generally, I do not ever use that thought process when I'm backing in the real world. I'm actually looking more where the corner of my trailer is, where my tandems are, where my drive tires are, and I always try to keep those as centered in the spot as I can. And if I always keep my drive tires and tandems the same distance away from a reference point, then I know I will always track parallel with that reference point. I learned that one of the things how I learned that from is just getting experience with backing myself. There were quite a few times where I'd back into a spot and I'd always find that I was I'd end up with my tractor on the left side of my spot. Okay, so here's another fundamental here with backing etiquette. Never make yourself an easy target to get hit, and never make it more difficult for other drivers to back into spots nearby. You don't want to make it easy for someone with not so great backing skills to possibly hit you and put you out of service. So I never allow my tractor to be on the left side of a spot or right side of a spot. I always want it to be as close to centered as I can. I don't necessarily need to worry so much if the back of my trailer or even my drive tires are perfectly centered, but once I'm all the way into the spot, just a little bit of left or right steering is all it takes to get the nose of my tractor at least in the middle of the spot and in a position where I'm at less risk of getting hit by somebody who might want to park next to me. Also, back into the spot as far as you possibly can. The further you back in, the more room you leave in the space in the lane for people to set up their own backings in. And the more room they have to work with, the easier time they're going to have, and the less likely they're going to be to back into or actually hit you while they're backing. Okay, so you're going to see it switch scenes here in a second here. So now that I'm done, I'm going to switch to a shot of, it's several minutes there. Now you saw, you're going to see a CRST driver. He's going to come around the corner and he's going to look for pull-through spots to park in. He's going to see, of course, that this guy's here, so he can't pull through here. Like, he's going to look here and find out the hard way that he can't pull through there either. Now, see, it's 4:38 right now. As at this point, he's just starting to come around. Now, I don't know if you noticed from when I was doing my backing, it only took me 1 minute from when I started my setup to when I was actually in the hole. Don't expect to get into a spot as quickly as I did when you're new. But the more you practice it, the better you're going to get with your skills, and especially if you're what you call a door swinger, like CRST is and myself are. Your job relies on backing into dock doors. If you don't know how to back, you need to practice it. Always work on your backing. If you, no matter how good or bad your backing skills are, I always say it's best practice. Always practice your backing. You can never back too many times. Now, see, he was trying to look for a pull-through spot. I'm assuming CRST does the same thing that Sierra England does. Sierra England is where I got my license from as well. They do have actually a good safety program and good training program. However, they don't have a great quality control process to make sure that the training part, after you already have your CDL, is actually being adhered to. Where the trainer, they don't have a way to make sure the trainer is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you are going to get hit and miss results with the training experience. There's so much demand for new trekkers right now. The industry is so short on what relative to what they need. I think trucking companies are really scrambling for both market share and also drivers to actually fill seats of all the trucks they have, because there's just not enough trucks and trailers to go around to haul all the freight that is in demand right now. But one of the things I will disagree with them on, at least with Sierra England on, is they always advocate pull-through parking as much as possible. And they always say avoid backing if there's a pull-through spot you can park in. I have two problems with that. One, you're a door swinger. Your job is to back into spots. So if you don't know how to back, you need to practice your backing. Two, pull-through parking is not as safe as people think it is. Three, Another reason why you'll never see me use a pull-through parking spot is because it's another trucker etiquette thing here for me. Um, you get wiggle wagon drivers, or as the guy, as I call, as what I call them, or some of us do. Wiggle wagon drivers are the ones who pull the doubles and triples, or as you might also call it LTL, or less than truckload drivers. Those would be like the FedEx, XPO, Saya, those kind of trucks. They cannot back because they have 3 pivot points versus our 1. So it's a lot trickier for them to back than it is for us. So it's not practical or really safe for them to try to back into spots like we can. And if all of us door swingers are all in flatbedders or whatever, are taking up all the pull-through spots, you're taking away spots that the wiggle wagon drivers could possibly be using. And then you'll find that the wiggle wagon guys end up parking in the fuel island to do the 30-minute breaks, or parking illegally somewhere else just because they have nowhere else they can park to do their breaks. So that's one of the reasons why I'll never use pull-through parking, and I also don't advocate pull-through. Here's another reason. Here's another problem. Now, it wasn't too far off. Now, we're coming back to this. If you're going to pull through, whether you're going to the fuel island or trying to pull through into a spot, remember that you are not in a car. Do not try to turn like you're in a car, okay? This is how accidents happen. This guy, he's not going to have an accident, but I don't want you guys to have an accident. And understanding some of the fundamentals here, this isn't a freaking car. It means don't think with the nose of your vehicle when you're moving. Think with the back of your trailer. And what I mean by this is, say if you're CRST and you're going to pull into the spot, don't just try to turn right into that spot like you would with your car. Because then when you do that, your tandems are going to be way over here, a good at least 1.5 spots over from where your tractor is, and you have zero chance in hell of getting into that spot without hitting this guy here. So as you see, CRST actually did try to swing it wide a little bit, but he had a couple of things working against him. For one, he mistimed it. 2, he's poorly positioned for his setup. He's very poorly. Now, if you're going to pull into this spot, try to get your tractor as close as you can to the opposite side of the lane as you can. That way you have all the space to work with possible to allow your tractor to maneuver and also to let your and to give margin for error if your tandems if they don't line back up with you right when you're actually getting into this area. And what I mean here is that when you swing, you should really have your tractor, once your tractor's facing the perpendicular to the lane here, or the same direction as the trucks here, and the same direction here as the trucks, I only say applies in perpendicular spots like this. It does not apply when you're in slanted spots. But in this situation here, we have regular 90-degree spots. So when your tractor's facing this direction, you should be positioned generally, depending on where your tandems are actually positioned. But if they're up closer to the front, normally you're going to find that you need your tractor to be maybe roughly between these 2 trucks here. Once you're actually facing at them, and then come back to your spot by pointing at this guy here, and then snake your way back into your spot. This will allow your tandems to get as close to centered in your spot and over here as possible before you actually start entering the spot. If you don't do this and you just try to drive in here just like you're in a car, like I say, your tandems will never get anywhere near there, and you're going to probably find out the hard way that you're either going to hit somebody or you're going to have to back out of it because you know you're going to hit somebody. Now, in this situation here, keep an eye on where Okay, so at this point, CRST is parallel with the setup lane. There's a lot of space here between him and myself. He could be helping himself more by putting his tractor a lot closer to me than he is. Usually the rule of thumb here is about 4 feet away. But as you see, he's probably at least a good 10, 15 feet away from me. So there's a lot of wasted space from that he could have been using. Okay, next thing. His trailer wasn't even lined up with him by the time he even did this. So it means his tandems are even further toward the same lane he's trying to park in. So I can tell just by this that he had no chance in hell of getting into that spot. Okay, as you see, he did try to swing a little bit wide, but his setup was terrible. See where his tandems are? His tandems are way over here, actually closer to his row than they are to mine. And in reality, they should be way over here close to me. He had kind of the right idea by pointing the see where his tractor's facing the same direction as mine now. And he is kind of lined up with the truck in the spot next to him, but in reality he should be further over to the right. His tandems are up at the front, so yeah, and it usually is about a spot to spot. I usually say about a spot and a half over from the one I really want. Is what I really need to maneuver. If the tandems are further back, you need even more space. And let's say if they were all the way back, because he's probably around 39 feet or so right here. With the tandems all the way back, you're about 47 feet from the kingpin to the rear axle. Your pivot point on a dual axle trailer like this is right between the two axles, though. So there's a 4-foot gap between these two axles. So your pivot point is actually 2 feet behind your front axle and 2 feet in front of your rear axle. So reality here, okay, he's about 39 feet. Maybe 40, yeah, I would say probably 39. I don't know, because each trailer has a different spot where their mechanical stops are on the tandem slide rail. So we'll just say he's probably about 37 feet from his pivot point. That's basically 3 full spots. So yeah, each spot is a standard parking spot is about 12 feet wide. Also, interstate lanes and arterial roads, and also major highways, those are also usually 12-foot wide lanes. And it's always important to consider this when you're maneuvering. So if you have 12 feet, 20 plus another 12 feet, that's 24, plus another 12 feet, it's 36. So somewhere in the ballpark over this guy is where his tractor should have been, and then coming back, and he would have been able to meet his tandems right at the center point of his spot if he had done that. But as you see, he's finding out the hard way now that he can't get in there. It's already been 5 minutes since he first came around the corner the first time around, and he's still not in a spot yet. It's another thing here. Be decisive. Don't just, why spend so much of your time looking for the perfect place to park, and in reality, and then not even know what you're doing here, and not be able to get in, or find out the hard way that you can't get in, even if you are set up as well as you can. Okay, at this point, I couldn't figure out what he really was trying to accomplish here, but I don't know if the front, I can't see because I went in the building to go pee and all that. I don't know if he's not turning the tractor yet because his tractor's not clear of this white Freightliner here yet, or if he's deliberately doing this to try to keep his tandems close to that side of the lane for to possibly back in instead. But this is a great example though of why I say I'm not a fan of pull-through parking. It's not as safe as you think it is. It's not as easy as you think it is when you have a 53-foot trailer. Leave that for the wiggle wagon guys. Like I say, if you're If it's your job to back into dock doors, you cannot ever get too much practice backing into a spot. Um, Also, if you do back into a spot, if you're not that great at backing, there are options you have. Um, One is you can get on the CB and find out if anyone who is on the air and is willing to get out and actually help you. You just tell them you're not very good at backing, or you need help. Um, Pretty good chance that somebody there, if people are awake, at least one person might be willing to get out of the truck and help you. A lot of these people are what you call super truckers, and they will lay into their air horns or talk trash about you on the CB, whatever. But in reality, you're the one in control of your truck, your equipment. You're the one who's responsible for being safe. If you have an accident, usually these guys get impatient. Now, see, this guy was okay. He was being patient. He wanted to get through the area. He had just left. I think he had just finished fueling up and was just trying to go. Of course, now CRST ended up giving up and going back around. And meantime, he held this guy up for probably a good 5 minutes. This guy was at least nice enough to not blow his air horn, but very commonly you're going to get people who will get impatient and will blow their air horn. And one of the worst things you can do is let those guys impact you. Very common where people get in a rush and then make stupid mistakes and have accidents. Now, it's easy for a company driver to take for granted when an accident does happen. Say if you back into somebody, you don't want to have anything on your record, but it's not so much of an impact on you when it doesn't cost you money out of your own pocket. In the end. But I'm a lease operator, and I'm leasing to own my truck, and I pay for insurance on it. So if you hit my truck, I have to pay a $1,000 deductible out of my own pocket for whatever damage you cause. So my personal view is, I don't care if you're a company driver or whatever else. If you hit my truck and cause damage to it, I'm going to take you to court, and I want to make sure that $1,000 that I had to spend comes out of your pocket. That way you're going to learn the hard way, learn an expensive lesson why you don't ever hit someone else's truck. Some of these other guys get very irate, and they'll actually be willing to fight you and all that if you hit them. Not to mention, you can put them out of service, and of course, most of us get paid by the mile. So if we get put out of service, we can't make money. Never hit somebody. I see CRST came right back around. It's already been 10 minutes since he first came around the corner the first time. Now, at this point, I'm coming back from the building. I can't even figure out what he's trying to do here. I had to actually stand there and wait just to figure out what he was doing before I could come back. But at first, I thought he was going to nose into one of the spots in the same row as me. But then it looked like he was trying to set up to back into one of the two spots that are over here on the end of the row. Ultimately, he ended up nosing into the spot. Now, here's the problem with nosing in. Yeah, there are reasons why people nose in, and they have what they believe is good, valid reasons to be nosing into spots. Various reasons are either they don't want to be parked next to a reefer, or because basically they're parking next to a reefer driver, and the reefer, they don't want to hear the noise of it, so they'll park the other way so they don't have to hear it so easily. Or maybe they are a reefer driver themselves and they're trying to be courteous to the guys parked next to them and keep the reefer unit away from the sleeper units of the other guys. Other people will say they do it because they like their privacy. Still others might say they do it because they aren't very good at backing. and it's just it's easy to get into a spot. It's maybe they can nose in, and still others might do it because they might have a nice truck that they own themselves and run on their own authority even, and are worried that some idiot rookie driver is going to hit them and rip their whole front end off. And I have seen this happen before. I was at a Love's in Tennessee once. I just left the fuel island, and a Schneider driver was trying to back into a spot, and he actually took out the front end of a show truck that was parked on the blind side of him. And the couple that was in that truck were not the least bit happy. Like I said, it was a show quality truck, and they were actually on the way to a truck show to compete in the show. So it put them out of service and put them in no position to be able to participate in that truck show because of what this one guy carelessly did. So those are the different reasons why people might be apt to nose in park. I don't care what the reason is. My advice is don't ever do it. And the reason why is, let's just say if you're nosed into this spot, getting into there might be easier, but when you're coming back out, you have no clue whatsoever what you're backing out into. You can be backing out into somebody who's coming down the lane, or could be walking around here not having any idea you're trying to back out of your spot. There are safety problems there. And as far as I'm concerned, safety always trumps anybody's convenience. If you don't like parking near reefer drivers, well, don't park at truck stops. If you can't handle the noise of reefer units or the smell of cow shit from the bull haulers, well, like I said, don't park at truck stops. If you don't want to get hit by somebody, don't park at truck stops. Or don't park at the major ones at least. Go, if you have to go park on an on-ramp or maybe one of the more hole-in-the-wall kind of truck stops where hardly anybody is at. There's just no good safe reason to nose into a spot though. Another case in point here. I had one time I was at the TA in Commerce City, Colorado, which is on the east side of Denver. All the spots there, or most all the spots, are slanted spots, and particularly I was just gotten into the lane that was going toward the Blue Beacon. That's also that parking lot, and wanted to set up for one of the blindside slanted spots there. And right when I was about to start my setup, which was, I think it was a Swift driver who was about maybe four spots down from where my spot was, or my desired spot was. He was nosed into his spot, and he'd started to back out of there and into the space I needed for my setup. So basically him backing out, he basically trashed my setup while I was already in the process of starting it. And he ended up, basically I wasn't able to back into my spot the way I really wanted to, and I ended up having a goal just because I didn't have as good a setup or ability to see my trailer through my mirrors as I normally would. So I ended up having a goal, and just despite him after that, I ended up goaling at least 3 or 4 more times, even though I only needed the one goal just to be sure of where I was at and that I was set up okay, or that my trailer was positioned okay, I should say. The other times I ended up goaling just to waste the other guy's time. Speaking of that, some of the other etiquette you should always follow when you're in a truck stop. If you see somebody backing into a spot and they stop to get out and look, you should get your ass out of your truck too and help them. Even if they don't need help, at least offer, hey, do you want me to spot for you? If they say no, it's okay, I got it, then hey, no problem. At least you offered to help. But quite often, these guys will, a lot of these drivers will appreciate it if they see that you actually offered a spot and and be in a position to help. Now, um, I'll talk more about the for spotting. No, yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about spotting now. I see a lot of mistakes get made with spotting too. One of the big cardinal sins to me is don't ever be inside the spot that the driver's trying to back into. Very, very stupid. Uh, I don't care what kind of experience people say they think they might have. You never ever put yourself in a position, right where the trailer is backing into. For one, the driver can see on the side side, whatever obstructions they have on the side side. Might be the truck on that side of them. Two, the trailer is coming right toward you, so there's always that chance that you can get ran over. And yes, it has happened. I think it was last year. I want to say it was at a Walmart or somewhere. I do clearly recall hearing about a situation where a truck was trying to back into a dock. I believe it was at a store, like a Walmart, and there was a spotter or somebody behind the trailer, and the driver ended up losing sight of the spotter and kept backing in, and next thing you know, they ended up squashing running over or squashing the spotter between the trailer and the dock door, and ended up killing them. So these are some of the other fundamentals with safety. If you know somebody's there and you lose sight of them, stop. Do not move until you know for sure where they are. And then when you are spotting, always try to be in a position where the equipment can't hit you. Now, when you're in a 45, what I usually do is I'll stand across. Let's say if I'm parking in my spot here, I'll stand over here all the way across the lane and off to the side where I can see the blind side trailer and the spot that's being parked in, and I'd be in a position where I can see the driver through their mirror. And then once I get far enough over to the point where I can get in front of the tractor, where I can see basically I can watch the driver from either the side of them or from the front of the tractor, and also see the corner of the trailer on the blind side. Then I put myself in that position. But I always try to be in view of the driver and in view of the blind side. So those are some of the fundamentals with spotting. I think that's all I have for now. Just hopefully you learned a few good tips from this. I encourage you to put whatever comments you can in here. Let me know if if this was of any use to you. All right, thanks.